So, if you've ever run Terraform apply and just been hit with a giant wall of red text, you know exactly what that feels like. It feels like you've hit a dead end. But what if I told you that error message isn't an obstacle at all? What if it's actually your best guide to solving the problem?
Look, let's get one thing straight right off the bat. Errors are not a sign that you've failed, not at all. They're a sign that you're actually making progress. Every single developer, from the absolute beginner to the most seasoned expert, spends their time debugging. The goal isn't to never see an error. The goal is to get really good at understanding what they're telling you. And that's what we're going to do right now.
That's the whole point of this. We're going to build a little mental toolkit for you. We'll break down what Terraform is really trying to say, so you can just get past the error and get back to what you actually want to do, which is build cool stuff. Okay, the very first roadblock most people hit is something called a provider error. You can think of this as a really fundamental communication breakdown. Basically, Terraform, which is running on your machine, can't talk to or authenticate with your cloud provider, whether that's AWS, Azure, or GCP. Think of Terraform like a general contractor. It knows how to build the house, it has the blueprints, but it still needs the keys to get onto the property, and it needs the right address. A provider error is basically like your contractor showing up to the wrong address or trying to use the wrong set of keys. It just can't get started. Now, the good news is the cause here is usually pretty simple. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be one of these 3 things. You either forgot to set up your credentials, there's a tiny typo in your API key, or maybe your configuration is telling Terraform to build in, say, US East 1 when your keys only work for EUS 2. So always check these things first. The error message itself might look super complicated and intimidating, but I promise you, if you read it carefully, buried inside all that text, it will often say something very simple, like authentication failed or region not found. You have to trust the message. It's not trying to trick you. It's your first and your best clue. Okay, so you've successfully connected to the cloud. What's next? Well, now you might run into a state error. This one can feel a little more confusing because it's not about connecting anymore. It's about a mismatch between Terraform's blueprint and what actually exists out there in the cloud. So how does this happen? Usually, it's because something changed in your cloud environment outside of Terraform. Maybe a colleague went into the web console and manually deleted a server or changed a security group on the fly. Now, Terraform's plan doesn't match the reality anymore. And this is just a brilliant way to think about it. The state file is your official floor plan for your infrastructure. If you go into the room and move the sofa, but you don't update that floor plan, well, the next person who looks at the plan is going to be completely lost. State errors are just Terraform's way of telling you, hey, someone moved the furniture and I'm confused. All right, our third common error type is all about sequence. Terraform is incredibly powerful, but it's not a mind reader. You have to tell it the correct order to build things. You can't put the roof on a house before the walls are up, right? The same exact logic applies to your infrastructure. For instance, a classic example is trying to attach a network interface to a virtual machine if that virtual machine doesn't exist yet. A dependency error is just Terraform putting its hands up and saying, hey, you've asked me to do something impossible because the thing it depends on isn't there yet. And a lot of the time, this is just a simple oversight. Maybe you forgot to reference the network's ID inside your virtual machine's code block. Because of that, Terraform doesn't know that it needs to create the network first. You have to explicitly connect the dots for it. So we've gone through the usual suspects, but what do you do when you see an error? Let's build a simple, repeatable process that you can use for any error, one that takes the stress and the panic right out of the equation. It's a totally fair question. Your terminal just explodes with all this information, and the natural instinct is to either panic or just start changing things randomly, hoping something works. But there's a much better way. This is it. This is your entire plan in 3 simple steps. First, just stop. Seriously, take a deep breath. Panic is the absolute enemy of good debugging. Second, read the error. And I mean really read it. Start at the top, go word for word. Don't skim it. And third, hunt for the treasure. Terraform almost always tells you the exact file name and the exact line number where it found the problem. That's your starting point. Now, before we finish up, let's talk about safety. Because when you're in the middle of debugging, it can be really easy to make a small problem a much, much bigger one. So these are 2 rules you just have to live by. Please listen closely, because these 2 rules are absolutely critical. First,
Never, ever manually delete the terraform.tf state file. That file is the only official record of your infrastructure. Deleting it is like burning the blueprints to a skyscraper while it's still being built. It's a disaster. Second, always pause before you use a command with a dash force flag. It's designed to override safety checks and can lead to permanent destructive changes. If you think you need it, just ask a senior colleague first.
And that's really what I want you to take away from all of this. Every single error you see is just a message. It's a puzzle that you get to solve. It's Terraform talking to you, giving you clues to help you fix your code. It is not a judgment. It's just information.
With this new mindset, you're not hitting roadblocks anymore. You're just decoding messages. So the next time you see that wall of red, you'll know exactly what to do. The only question left is, what's the next message you're ready to solve?